people, it's me, Anja. My pronouns are she and her, and welcome back to my channel for the Midyear Book Tag of 2022. For those who don't know, this book tag was created to reflect upon the first half of your reading year, and honestly, I'm not fully satisfied with the first half of my reading year. However, I have read over 150 books, which is a pretty hefty number. So, maybe I should be satisfied, but I'm not, because I would have rather read more books by this time, but there's nothing I can do about that. So, anyway, I will link the original tag in the description box below, and I tag anybody who's interested. So, the first question is, what's the best book that you've read so far this year? I've read about 10 5-star favorites of this year. The first one was Fire Becomes Her, which I read in February, and the latest one was The Cartographers, but I don't have, a favorite one of those. When I do my best books of the year at the beginning of, the next year, I don't, rank them or anything. I just talk about them in chronological order. So, yeah, there's that. Anyway, the second question is, what's the best sequel that you've read so far this year? I have 4 to talk about. So in this photo, we have Heartstopper Volume 3, which is my favorite of the Heartstopper volumes that I've read so far. For those who don't know, I read the Heartstopper volumes all back to back a month before the show came out, and I think the books are definitely better than the show, because the books have more page time to develop all the characters. So for example, Tao and Elle are better developed, distinct, well-rounded characters in the books than they are in the show. So yeah, that makes sense, obviously, because there's more time in the books than there is in the show. For example, that's why Oliver, Charlie's little brother, isn't in the show, but he is in the books. Even though in the books, I would imagine that he has 15 lines of dialogue. You know what I mean? Anyway, so yeah. The second book on that list, I would say, is The Weeping Tide, which was one of my most anticipated 2022 new releases, and it's written by one of my favorite authors, Amanda Foody, and it's a middle grade fantasy sequel, and it's so good. It's book 2 of 7 in that series, and I'm so excited to continue the series because it's so good. But anyway, the third sequel on this list is Ashes of Gold, if I'm not mistaken. Is that the title? I don't know. It's the Wings of Ebony sequel. It's a YA urban fantasy, and it's so good. And the fourth sequel on this list is actually one of my 5-star favorites, which is Redemptor, which is the YA fantasy sequel to Redemptor, and I personally thought it was better than Redemptor. And again, it's so good, and I would highly recommend. So anyway, those are my 4 top favorite sequels that I've read so far this year. So yeah. The third question is, what's a new release that you haven't read yet but you really want to? So for this question, I have 3 options. The first option is The Science of Being Angry, which is a it's middle grade queer sapphic contemporary, and it follows a young sapphic girl whom I believe is a triplet, and she's trying to figure out if her anger issues are genetic, because I also believe that she's adopted or something. I don't know. It was on my May TBR, but I didn't read it in May for whatever reason, because I couldn't find it anywhere, which is weird, because I usually can find new releases pretty fast and pretty quickly. So maybe the release date changed. That's what happened with The Language of Seabirds, which I believe will come out in July instead of on May 17th. But anyway, I digress. The second book on this particular list is Rebel Skies, which is a YA Asian-inspired fantasy, and I'm so excited to read it. And the third book on this list is Fight or Flight, I believe it's called, and it's a middle-grade queer sapphic contemporary following 2 disabled main characters. We love disability representation, and it follows them because they share a bond over a traumatic school shooting experience, which first of all reminds me of the Fallout, but second of all is so timely to read right now, especially with the recent Uvalde school shooting. So yeah. Anyway, I'm so excited to read that book. I hope that it will be really good. I hope that it will be at least better than the author's previous book. Both can be true, if you know what I mean. Anyway, yeah. So to answer that question, I would say The Science of Being Angry, Rebel Skies, and Fight or Flight. I think maybe actually it's called Fight and Flight, but whatever. I'm so excited to read it. So yeah, they were also all May releases, or they were all supposed to be, but I can't find them anywhere, so maybe they actually won't. Anyway, the next question is, what's your most anticipated release for the second half of the year? So, like, for those who don't know, I made a video at the very beginning of this year talking about my most anticipated 2022 new releases, as I do every year. And on that list, honestly, like, the majority of them have already come out, but there are like 4 or 5 books that have yet to come out. And of those 4 or 5, I would definitely say Nothing Sung and Nothing Spoken, which is a YA sapphic queer historical fiction book. And I don't remember exactly when it's set, but I'm trying to diversify the historical fiction books that I read, because the majority of them that I've read have been straight and white, you know what I mean? And able-bodied and neurotypical and everything. So, like, I'm trying to, like, diversify that genre. And, like, the author previously wrote Who I Was With Her last year, I think, or maybe the year before, and I love that book so much. So, naturally, I'm so excited for their next book. Although, I would also say the 4th Morgan Crow book, which comes out in October, if I'm not mistaken. And, like, Nothing Sung and Nothing Spoken comes out the month after, I think. I'm not completely sure. But honestly, I would say that if I had to choose between Nothing Sung and Nothing Spoken and Morgan Crow 4, I would say Nothing Sung and Nothing Spoken. So, yeah. Anyway, the next question on this list is biggest disappointment. This is the easiest question on this list, and I would say 1,000 Steps Into Night. I didn't like this book very much. It was one of my most anticipated 2022 new releases, yet it absolutely, like, didn't meet that expectation at all, much less exceed it. It's this, like, YA, Japanese-inspired, like, fantasy, I think. Something to do with demons and curses and, like, things that didn't go the way that, like, the main character expects or whatever. I don't know. It was darker than I was expecting, and also, like, I didn't care about any of the characters at all. So, yeah. That was my biggest disappointment so far of 2022, so we hate to see it. Every single year, one of my most anticipated releases disappoints me, and I hate that this year it was that one. It was also Survive the Dome, but, like, I disliked 1,000 Steps Into Night more. So, yeah. Anyway, the next question is biggest surprise. I don't really have one, because even though I've definitely had books that surprised me this year, I don't really have one that was, like, the biggest surprise, because the majority of the books that I've really enjoyed, like all my 4 and 5 star reads, I've expected them to be really, really good. So, yeah, I can't think of one that I didn't expect to be really, really good. That was, like, my biggest shock. So, yeah. Anyway, the next question is favorite new author. I feel like I don't really have one either, because, like, for an author to constitute as a favorite of mine, I feel like for me, I have to have read, like, multiple books by them, and I will have to have enjoyed all of their books, or, like, the majority of their books. So, like, I don't really have one. Of all of, like, the debut authors that I've read this year, like, there's always a chance that the next book is just not as good. So, I don't know, maybe, like, Emily Lee, or the author of Ophelia After All, or Emily Lee is not a debut author. They debuted last year. But anyway, my point is, I don't really have one specific author to say, but yeah, that's my answer. Anyway, the next 2 questions I'm going to combine, because the next question is newest fictional crush, and then the question after that is newest favorite character. But I'm going to combine these questions together and just answer actually the second question, because, like, first of all, I don't get crushes on fictional characters, but second of all, I feel like that question was added with the implication that, like, every reader has crushes, which we all know isn't true, and I feel like it's kind of excluding, like, aromantic people, you know what I mean? I don't know, I'm not aromantic, so maybe I shouldn't have said that, but anyway, the point is, my newest favorite fictional character of 2022, I don't really have one. I would say all the characters of my favorite books of this year, which is a lot of characters since I have 10 5-star favorites of this year. So, yeah, there's that. Anyway, the 10th question is, what's a book that made you cry this year? Any of my 5-star favorites. For example, Ophelia After All, I cried 4 times. For Flight, I cried 4 times. Kiss and Tell, I cried at the end. Redemptor, I wanted to cry. Blood Like Magic, I cried at the end. The Cartographers, I loved that book so much. I didn't cry, but I think I wanted to. Fire Becomes Her, I cried twice, I think. Jennifer Chan Is Not Alone, I cried at least twice, if not more. So yeah, any of those books. So anyway, next question is a book that makes you happy. I don't have one, which kind of sounds sad, but I don't have one. So yeah, I apologize in advance if you can hear like background noises or whatever. Obviously I can't control them, so again, I should only draw attention to stuff that I can't control, but sometimes I do because I feel like people can hear it, but like maybe you can't, maybe you can just hear me. I don't know. Anyway, the second to last question is, what's the prettiest book that you've read? So for me, I would say A Magic Steeped in Poison, which I feel like would be a popular answer, because I feel like people will say either that book or The Girl That Fell Beneath the Sea, which I personally DNF'd. So yeah, A Magic Steeped in Poison, which is a YA Asian-inspired fantasy following a girl who enters a magical tea brewing competition, and it came out in March, and I'm so excited to read the sequel. Although, if I'm being honest, like, I don't remember why she enters the tea brewing competition in the first place. Like, I'm sure she has a great motive. I just don't remember what it is, but I'm so excited to read the sequel, which I think comes out, like, in the second half of the year. I'm not completely sure. Maybe it comes out next year. Who knows? I'm so excited to read it. So, anyway, the last question is, what books do you need to read before the end of the year? So, I have so many. Like, my Goodreads TBR has 360 books on it. So, yeah. Not to say that I'm going to read 360 books by the end of 2022. I would love to do that, but, like, I don't think I'm going to. Like, I read 403 books in the year of 2020, but I don't think that I will be able to reach that number ever again. I literally had so much free time in 2020, but I have, like, a summer job now, and I have, like, less like bad mental health days this year than I did then. So yeah, I don't know. I hope to reach at least between like 350 books and 380 books at the end of this year, although I haven't set a numerical goal. So yeah, basically the point is, I hope to be more satisfied with my reading at the end of the year than I am right now, and I feel like I can do that, but I also know that I will have to unlearn the idea that I have to read like a certain number of books, or that it matters more about like the quantity of the books I read than the quality. I know we already talked about this in the Reading Smart Book Tag, but yeah. Anyway, that's the mid-year book tag of 2022. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I tag anybody who is interested. So if you enjoy this video, please don't hesitate to give it a big thumbs up, comment down below the elephant emoji if you made it all the way to the end of the video. Thanks for watching, subscribe to my channel if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!